Oh, things are not looking good on the Diddy Combs, the Combs empire, the Combs home. Now it's the Combs kids. Christian Combs is the latest, who to be brought up on charges, a lawsuit, civil suit with assault, battery, sexual assault, premises liability, aiding and abetting, intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligent infliction of emotional distress as well. Demand for a jury trial. So this includes Christian, aka King Combs, and his dad, Diddy. Diddy's named in this as well for the aiding and abetting, the premises liability, the intentional infliction of emotional distress, and negligent infliction of, I guess the negligent infliction of emotional distress applies to Diddy. So basically, the yacht was chartered by Diddy, so he's responsible, and that's where all this stuff is coming from. We're going to get into it. Time to Talk podcast. Let's do it. But first, before we do that, if you're new, subscribe, hit that button below, hit the like button. I truly appreciate that. Let's get right to this. First of all, not going to be a good holiday for the Combs. Not that it was shaping up to be one anyway, considering, Diddy is locked up and all, this whole mess has taken place. But now with King Combs being part of the entire situation, it's really looking bad. Now, this makes me wonder a few things, right? Like the kids, because you're going to hear all this stuff, like, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And what's the other one? Like father, like son, right? How much did these young men, were they groomed in this lifestyle by Diddy himself, right? This guy of ultimate power. No one can tell me no. I'm the man. I get what I want. I do what I want. His attitude, his teachings, the way he taught his children, clearly it must have reflected the way he sees life and the way he sees things. And clearly we know how he sees life, and we know how he sees things and how he gets what he wants and takes what he wants and take that, all that stuff. Plus the fact the way he treats women, beating the hell out of Cassie like a dog, right? Like, I'm not convinced that the children never saw any of this. And as we get into the Christian, aka King Combs thing right now, you think about the boys. You got Quincy, who's 33, which was Albie Shore's biological son. Then Justin is 30, and Christian is 26. So they're all, at what point were they aware of the idea? I mean, they're born into money. They're born into lifestyle and to privilege and to having anything you want. Like, what does that 16-year-old birthday look like? What does that 18-year-old's birthday look like? Did your dad, how many women were provided for these young men? Considering Diddy's moral compass and the way his standard of what he believes women to be for, and how he sees women and how he sees masculinity and all these things, right? Like, did he provide party favors for his children, for his sons? The way Diddy was living, it just seems like that part of their lifestyle was, we will have women, we'll get what we want. And obviously these kids were around that. So I say all that because I have to wonder about Quincy and Justin and how much their noses are clean in all of this. Is it even possible? They all must have, their brothers all relatively within the same age range, right? So they go through experiences together. They talk about women and dating together, right? That's something that's natural. And from what we know with Diddy, with all this open stuff happening at freak offs and all these weird, like these things taking place in a open setting, was this something that his children, his boys, the male heirs to the throne, were they privy to all this? Did they know? There's no way he kept all that from them. And there's no way that they weren't aroused by or were not incentivized, like, from Diddy to want to prove themselves and their masculinity and be with women and have whatever you want. I might be going on a small tangent, but I wanted to get that out because I'm wondering now with this case against Christian, I'm wondering who's next. All right. I'm wondering who's next in the Diddy clan. Now, this particular case, I'm going to go through it. I have the document here. I have the court document here. First of all, before we get into the document, one of the interesting things was I thought this was relatively like a couple of days ago that this was filed, or like within the last couple of weeks this was filed and the news was just breaking. But it turns out that this was filed in the Superior Court of California on April 4th, 2024. This is filed months ago. And as I looked at the timeline, I tried to look at like how this related to the timeline with Diddy's the federal raid on his homes in Florida and California, and also I wanted to see, you know, and his arrest. I wanted to see where this case actually falls in. So February, if we just jump into the timeline, February is when he's accused of sexual assault by a record producer, right? That's the Little Rod thing. Prior to that, he had all these different cases coming up, the different allegations. But February, I'm starting at that point because that's where Little Rod comes up. And he's also mentioned in this lawsuit with this yacht young lady. So that's why I'm saying this. We'll get to that in a minute. And then March is when the actual raid took place. That's where things started to really get serious for Diddy. And we all saw that play out on television. That was breaking news all over the place. So again, looking at the timeline events, now between March and May, the next thing that took place was the video of Diddy assaulting Cassie. That was released May 17th, 2024. So in between March and that, you know, the home being raided, this young lady filed a suit. Now, her name is Grace O. Marquez. I'm going to say it's Marquez. Marcaigh. Marquez. It's the way I would say that. It's either French or it's Scottish or Irish. Grace Marquez. All right, so she files, and again, the complaint for damages here: assault, battery, sexual assault, premises liability. That would be the yacht. So Diddy being responsible for that. Aiding and abetting. That would be Diddy. Intentional infliction of emotional distress and negligent infliction of emotional distress. Again, that would apply to Diddy. So let's just go through some of this because there are a couple of points that I want to get to here. Now, before I even do that, let me stress again, I've said several times on the channel that I think it's important that we don't do the whole victim shaming or the not believing victims and not believing these young women and young men and the people who come up. And I think there should be way more investigations as far as the younger folk or the people who are not of age. The Allie Carter situation, for example, I think if you haven't seen that video, you should look on my channel for that. I put a link to it somewhere here. But there's so much more deeper things going on as opposed to just celebrity names. You know, there's and who's on the list, who partied with Diddy, who's privy to all this stuff. There's like real victims that are involved here. So I'm saying all this because I think, considering the Cassie tape being released, I would say at this point, 99% of the population and this whole Diddy case being tried in the media and with, you know, on YouTube for the most part, most people believe a lot of the victims, right? Most of them. I do. I feel like, yeah, people coming out now, like, I'm siding with them. I'm sorry, we saw you treat this woman like an animal. We know how you feel about people and about women. We saw your fake apology video on IG. We get it. So I'm taking the side of the victims here and the people who come up and tell their truth. However, with that said, as I've said previously, it doesn't mean there will not be opportunists. People coming out of the woodwork. Tony Busby filing, forgot how many suits he's filing in Texas. And they've got to sift through and sort through all the different people making complaints. And it's been proven there have been people who are making illegitimate claims against Diddy, trying to jump on the money wagon, the bandwagon. So you got to remember that there's still that part at play here. There is still that part. Because think of this. If you're in the Hamptons, New York, and you're at one of those parties, and you were a young lady, and maybe someone came on to you, maybe someone made a comment about your body parts, maybe someone propositioned you, you had a couple of drinks, maybe you didn't have a couple of drinks, maybe you had one drink, maybe you had two drinks, maybe you got sloppy drunk, maybe you spent the night, maybe you didn't do anything, but you just spent the night, you just crashed out somewhere, no one bothered you and you didn't bother anybody. Or maybe you did have a little something going on, maybe you didn't, maybe fully consensual, maybe whatever, maybe you decided to go to the back room or wherever it was, or in the pool, maybe you did get naked, maybe you didn't, I don't know. But think of this, anyone who had a drink and was at the party, or maybe felt lightheaded the next day, could technically file a suit against Diddy. And unfortunately for Diddy, a lot of the evidence, people, like I said just before I made the statement, a lot of people are going to tend to believe whatever people are saying. But that doesn't mean that people won't get through and find paydays when they don't really deserve them. We'll get back to that. But right now, Grace O. Marquez is a European Caucasian female who worked as a stewardess in the yachting industry since 2018. Plaintiff's love of yachting started at an early age and was a foundation on which she had built her career. I find that from a young age you wanted to be into yachting? What does that mean? You're like, hey, young lady, what would you like? Well, I want to get into yachting. She wanted to be like own a yacht and have a yacht of her own, or she wanted to work on a yacht. The love of yachting started. Did she come from a wealthy family and knew about yachts? I don't know. What was her aspirations there? Anyway, through yachting, plaintiff has traveled the world, met many new friends and colleagues, and enjoyed a very successful career. I'm sure she has. Throughout her career, plaintiff has always worked well in teams. And so this is basically giving a upfront sort of like she's a good girl. Let's just paint the picture of her right away. She's consistently received promotions. She's not a problem. So credibility and character is what this is really spelling out right here. Now, I want to move to when she gets into the defendant. Defendant, C. Combs, is a 25-year-old automated and heavily edited rapper. I read that. That's line 8 in the document. I read that and I was like, what does that have to do with anything? But it is amazing that the team that put this together decided that the very first thing they say is defendant C. Combs is a 25-year-old auto-tuned and heavily edited rapper. So is that casting some sort of like discrediting his musical talent and discrediting him as a legitimate celebrity or something in the business, right? It's kind of what it does. That language is very clever. I see why they did it. But I don't know if anyone else reading this, or I haven't heard anything else on any of the other reports that anyone else picked up on that. But I just thought that was interesting. Unfortunately, as the saying has hit, the apple does not fall far from the tree. So here it goes. So now it's basically painting the picture of Combs, of Diddy. So line 10, defendant Sean Combs, S. Combs, who has also been accused of several acts of sexual assault, rape, sexual violence, and drugging, among other deplorable conduct, is the father of Combs, who is seemingly taken after his father in the family business of reckless partying, drugging others, sexual violence, and other illegal conduct. Now, this is, of course, brilliant as well. All right, it's a civil case versus a criminal case. The language is going to be totally different. So you can get away with putting things in there like that. Yeah, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Look at his dad. Because that's what's really happening here. And again, the dad, Diddy's pretty much been tried in the court of a public opinion already, even though his actual legal trial doesn't come up until May of next year, 2025. So this is smart, putting all this and combining the idea that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Okay, so I'm not going to go through all the stuff with, they go through his history, through Diddy's history, basically. And let's go down to her complaint. She was working on, in or around July 2022, Grace O'Marquet, plaintiff, was working on the Victorious, a super yacht built by Yacht and owned and operated by Fraser. Plaintiff worked as a temporary second stewardess from the company Equiom. So they call them stewardesses on the yacht, huh? Okay. Plaintiff worked in her temporary position for a month on Victorious, then was subsequently offered a permanent position due to her professionalism, passion for the job, and great customer service skills. In or about September 2022, she'd been part of a dedicated team at Monaco Boat Show, tasked with selling charters for Victorious to high-end net clients such as C. Combs and S. Combs. Let's just go through. I want to skip through her whole history of working and what she did. I want to get more to the actual allegations against Christian. All right, so here, let's look at line. During the second week of the charter service, there was a significant amount of partying and drug use, which caused the guests to stay up through the night. So basically, the Combs, booked this yacht. The makeup of the yacht quickly evolved from just defendant S. Combs and his family to include a constant rotation of suspected SEX workers and an A-list celebrity such as French Montana and actor Cuba Gooding Jr. Show me the money. Defendant S. Combs turned what was sold as a wholesome family excursion into a hedonistic environment. I'm trying to figure that one out. Oh, hey, yeah, look, we would like to have the yacht. What we're going to do is we're just going to have like some family, my mom, some cousins, some aunties, the kids, a little barbecue, a little fun out in the water. It's a family thing. Like really, like that's how it was sold, as a wholesome family excursion in a hedonistic, like it, again, the language here is very specific and for a reason. And it turned into a hedonistic environment. According to plaintiff, it resulted in an unexpected increase in workload for her and her colleagues, as well as unwanted exposure to unlawful drug use, sex work, and general chaos. I have to wonder, and I will repeat this theme a few times later on in the document as we get to it, the specific examples, but I have to repeat the idea that if you're working like that and you felt exposed to, like, wouldn't you just be like, hey, I'm out, or quit, or not be part of that particular excursion, or get sick or something? And again, this is not to discredit this young lady. This is just to say, I'm thinking about it in terms of, man, like every time I hear some of these complaints and I hear some of these scenarios being spelled out, I feel like, what would I do in that situation? All right. Created an extremely hazardous environment, demanded drinks at 6 a.m. Plaintiff was aware that Rodney Jones, a producer, was employed to work in the level. He was required to be on standby for musical recordings, often late into the night. They go into a little stuff about the actual album and Rodney, Little Rod, and all these. Okay, let's get to where Christian Combs. He came on board on a late hour. He arrived. He was heavily intoxicated, mixture of narcotics and alcohol. Upon entering the studio, immediately started ordering that tequila shots be poured from a bottle of alcohol he may have bought onto the yacht. Ironically, Combs was playing Cassie's "Me and You." Ironically, defendant C. Combs was playing Cassie's "Me and You," playing in the background. Now, again, the language here, this is very intentional. This is super intentional. Like, she knew the song that was playing was a Cassie song, "Me and You," and that actually happened. I'm going to say that's a little stretch. I'm going to say that's a little bit of a stretch, but who knows? Cassie was an artist under S. Combs and was his former love interest, who was all accused Sean Combs of serious sexual and mental abuse. All right. In the studio, defendant asked that the plaintiff bring the shots to the recording studio, Sundeck, and plaintiff obliged, as she was only serving steward at the time. Plaintiff noticed immediately that he was particularly attentive with her, which she considered very inappropriate. However, plaintiff began to become concerned when he insisted that she take shots of tequila he may have bought on board the yacht. Under pressure and wanting to be polite, plaintiff obliged. Prior to this, the plaintiff witnessed defendant S. Combs create a Black Santa video, which showed him demanding the captain, various heads of departments, and crew take shots of tequila with him. As this was a pattern established by the captain of the yacht and defendant Combs, plaintiff felt comfortable knowing that Mr. Jones was present and didn't think anything more of it. She felt that she could take one shot and he would let her return to the pantry. According to plaintiff, at this point, the mood changed and things became sinister. Defendant C. Combs insisted that plaintiff stay chatting and that she sit beside him. Combs became aggressive and insisted that plaintiff take a further shot and sit beside him. At this point, defendant Combs violently grabbed plaintiff's arm and began hurting her. He pulled plaintiff to the seat beside him and prevented her from getting up. Whew. All right, let's go through, because there's actually some dialogue that she recalls here, and it's spelled out here in the actual document. So let's just get right to that. Below is a transcript of defendant C. Combs forcing plaintiff to consume the suspected lace shots of De Leon tequila. Audio 1. I guess they have audio of this, which will be interesting to see. I'm not sure if this says it is audio. It's identified as audio 1, audio 2. So I don't know if they actually have a recording of this. Defendant Combs. Yo, it's shot o'clock. Plaintiff. No, I'm not doing shots, Christian. Defendant Combs. Everybody, we got to take a shot. Now it goes to audio 2. I'll just put the ledge. This is the plaintiff. Okay, this is Grace. And then Combs. No. Take the whole thing. Plaintiff. No, you will take it as well. So she's trying to get him to drink. I guess, is she saying, I want to make sure it's not laced or something, so you drink first? Defendant C. Combs, take the whole shot. Plaintiff, I'm only doing it as long as you take it as well. I ain't going to lie. I'm not taking nothing. Please, take the shot. You are drugging me? So she spells out the fact that, hey, defendant C. Combs, take the shot. Hey, yo, play another beat one time, because now, and below is a transcript of defendant C. Combs' sexual assault of the plaintiff. Okay, so now it skips to, this is not audio. This is, I guess, because this is not identified as audio unless it's part of the same audio 2, but they didn't break it down to audio 3. It seems to skip to the actual assault, like him touching her. So Cassie, Me and You, featuring P. Diddy and Young Jock's song playing in the background. It reads like a screenplay. Plaintiff, this is not an offer. Defendant Combs, you said what? Plaintiff, I can't. I'm swapping out. I can't do it. I'm sorry, darling. Defendant Combs, nah, we need you. Plaintiff, I'm going to stop. I have to go. Honestly, I'm like already losing sleep. I have to go now. Defendant Combs, you're the best one on this ship, though. Plaintiff, what do you mean? Defendant, who's going to replace you? Plaintiff, who's going to replace me? Combs, F that. That's going to be trash, though. You feel me? Plaintiff, excuse me, you don't touch my legs like that. I'll move my legs where I want to. So apparently he must have rubbed up on her leg or grabbed her leg or something. Plaintiff, if I want to do this, then I will. You don't touch my legs like that. That's an interesting line. Defendant Combs, listen, you and everybody in the crew, it's great. Plaintiff, I can't. I have to go down. I have to go down. Combs, no. Yo, tell me. Listen. Plaintiff, what? Defendant Combs, like, say you're just vibing with me the whole time. Plaintiff, I can't. I promise you. I wish I could, but I can't. Unless I say that you guys requested me. What is that? That struck me when I first read this. I can't. I promise you. I wish I could, but I can't. Unless I say you guys requested me. So I'm trying to figure out. She's in a situation where it seems to be an aggressive sexual situation that he's put her into. She's making it clear that no, I'll make the decisions here, which is perfectly understandable. That's the way it should be. And then she says, "I wish I could stay with you," but she's speaking almost as if it's like a protocol for how they behave on the boat, the actual crew, right? Like she's, well, no, I got to get permission. I'd have to say you requested your time with me, which sounds a little suspect to me. But let's keep going. Defendant Combs, yes. Who can I talk to right now? Who can I talk to? I'm going to say I requested you right now. So he's basically saying, yeah, well, I'm going to request you. Let's make it happen. And she says, well, you can take your hand off my ass for the first thing. So all of a sudden his hand was on her butt. Okay. According to the plaintiff, so the audio, I guess, ends there, or whatever the statement is, ends there. According to the plaintiff, she said she would have to be requested because she knew anyone of authority who would approve the request was asleep. Okay, so this was a tactic she was using. Defendant Combs would not have been able to contact them, and plaintiff could then leave. After being assaulted in the recording studio, plaintiff attempted to resume her duties that night. She made her way to the pantry where she met another steward who was assigned to take over the shift. Her colleague recognized that plaintiff was visibly intoxicated, in shock, and trying to finish the shift. Shortly after returning to the pantry, defendant Combs called for plaintiff. He went looking for her and demanded that she find him a place to sleep on the yacht. At such a late hour of the night, blah, blah, boom, boom, boom. So there was a lot of places that were already filled. So she basically took him over to the cinema, and there was a place for him to sleep there. Plaintiff retreated to a corner of the room. Defendant Combs became physical and extremely aggressive. He cornered plaintiff and started to grope her. Plaintiff pushed him back constantly. Combs then took off all his clothes. His joint was whatever. He grabbed her arms and was trying to force plaintiff to perform an act on him. Plaintiff began fighting defendant Combs, and not long after, her partner on board entered the cinema. This startled Combs, and the plaintiff was finally able to leave. The plaintiff's partner became concerned and went looking for the plaintiff after she had not returned to her room after her shift had ended. This is very interesting. Now, why didn't the partner, like, it just seems that there would have been much more to do about the situation in that moment. She was grabbed, she was physically abused and assaulted. So to me, it just seems, again, in that moment, there would have been much more to do there. Like, I would have gotten off the boat. You know, I've spoken to other women about this. I asked, like, how do you handle a situation like that? If a guy, you know, if you were in that situation, what would that be like? Like, how would you handle that? And women have emphatically told me, they've even made reference to this. It was like, even if I was on that boat and I had to swim with the sharks and get eaten, I'd get off the boat. But not the case here. The morning after, plaintiff complained to the yacht's captain. He lacked compassion or concern. He failed to investigate. I guess this is one of those things where it seems like, hey, you know, this is what we do. This is how we make our money. You're screwing things up. Added insult to injury by assigning plaintiff to work in front of the house, which required personally serving Combs while they were on the yacht. This is a day later. Plaintiff was 25 years old at the time of the attack. Based on the information and belief, defendant Combs' employees, including his drug mule Brendan Paul, his chief of staff Christina Coram, and his second in line Frankie Santella, learned of what occurred and informed Sean Combs. So they told him. They told Sean. And then the captain received a generous tip from Combs in order to keep him quiet and keep him from protecting. Now, how does he know, like, where is the information about that? Like, the actual tip was received. Like, where is the eyewitness? How is that put out into this document? Like, where is that coming from? That there was evidence of Sean paid a particular amount of money. You know, this is speculation. Only a few members of the ship's staff were required to write statements. Plaintiffs and her partner were the only two staff members not interviewed and asked not to write a statement. I don't know how that happens. I just don't. All right. Here's where she goes into what she has suffered, right? Below are the images of plaintiff. So they put actual images of the bruises in the document on her arm. So she took photos, I guess, that night. The next day she took these photos, I guess, but didn't file a police report, or did file. I don't know. She didn't file a police report because nothing came up, right? This is a civil suit. And this is 2 years later that she filed. According to the plaintiff, the past year, 2023, has been the most deeply traumatizing time of her life. After defendant C. Combs' sexual assault and subsequent cover-up orchestrated by defendant S. Combs and his staff, plaintiff was isolated and retaliated against on the yacht. This isolation and retaliation finally resulted in plaintiff's termination. So basically, she's alleging that the captain got rid of her because she caused, some sort of a stir or bought it up in the first place. But she didn't go anywhere with it, really. I guess It's not like she called the police and had an investigation, and the captain was pissed off about that and brought unwanted negative attention and whatever to the yacht company. I don't know. In addition to this is where it gets really interesting. In addition to losing her employment, plaintiff also lost her longtime partner with whom she had planned a future. Plaintiff's partner was never the same after seeing plaintiff's bruises on her body because of defendant C. Combs' sexual assault and having to deal with the mental and emotional ramifications, so they separated. Now, I'm going to pause there because I don't care what you say. And again, I stated it earlier on. I'm trying to believe everybody. This just seems really spurious to me. This seems like how can we, from a legal perspective, if I'm your attorney, yeah, I'm throwing everything in there. Hey, is the relationship with your dog still the same? No, because my dog doesn't greet me the same. Well, that's probably because she recognizes a certain amount of pain and suffering within your eyes, and dog can smell that you've been traumatized. So we have to actually, we need to identify that, and we need to spell that out for the court and for the jury to understand that the relationship with your dog has changed significantly, and that dog meant a lot to you. That is what's going on here. The boyfriend, longtime partner with whom she had planned a future. So in other words, my whole plan for a family, a wedding, and kids is all ruined now, and I've got to be compensated for that because that's what this is doing. I just don't understand. If my girlfriend, fiance, whatever, a friend of mine that I cared about told me a story about, I'm on a yacht, I work on a yacht, I'm working with a bunch of celebrities or whatever, Diddy Combs, his son, assaulted me. Look at my arm. Oh my God. And tried to rape me. I don't know about you. I don't know about any other man watching this. You'll let me know in the comments. But there would be an instant load them up, get your joints, let's go, round up the boys, and it's going to be on. And it would be done the Brooklyn way, right? Period, point blank. And beyond that, even if there was a moment of pause and it wasn't done the Brooklyn way, there would definitely be some mention this would come out. This would be public. So I don't know how it's he left her. Oh, really? You almost got raped by Sean Combs? Oh, I can't be with you. I'm done with you. Can't believe you let some guy touch you. Now, maybe it was one of those situations. Maybe the guy was so disgusted or thought that maybe she was putting herself out there and he never liked her having that job to begin with. And it turned into a big domestic dispute. I told you I didn't want you on that boat with all those damn rappers and all these people and all that money. And what about that one time I caught you with Idris Elba and I knew you was doing something with him? It could have been one of them situations. And he just had enough of it. But it just seems like this is a stretch to me. Plaintiff's mental health deteriorated to the point where she was medicated, requiring intense therapy. Additionally, she fell into deep depression, was unable to fully carry out her maid of honor duties at the wedding of her only sister. This is really, wow, this really goes. There's anxiety, panic attacks, so all the standard legal stuff. Like I said before, I was being somewhat cheeky about the dog situation, but that's the way these things play out. This is what attorneys do. Psychological drama, her physical health began to deteriorate, epileptic seizures. Does she have a medical history of that previously and they kicked in what? Or now she's got epileptic seizures, and basically blaming Sean because they didn't have safeguards in place. Look, I'm not even going to continue with this. Look, you've heard enough. Christian is facing a civil suit, and so is Diddy. Got another one. I'm trying to imagine that phone call. I'm already got issues. I already got problems, and now you got me into another one. That's Diddy in jail talking to Christian. This is just the ongoing saga of Combs, and it's going to continue. And like I said, like I mentioned at the top of this video, I am curious about Quincy and Justin, and what do they know? What have they seen? Like, try to imagine that Diddy, the father, has been behaving like this for 20, 30 plus years, or let's just say 20 years, right? And Christian, who's the youngest of the three boys, right? Christian is now alleged in this, and he's got a certain thing, and he's a rapper / whatever, although he's auto-tuned, as the document mentions. Quincy and Justin, especially Justin being the firstborn with Kim Porter, right? So out of the kids that Diddy has with Kim Porter, Justin was the firstborn. Remember, Quincy is Albie Shore's son that Diddy raised. Do these boys have the same lifestyle? Do they not share that same fascination with women and hot cars and money and privilege and no one tells me no kind of thing? I have to wonder. I got to wonder what more is going to come out, because think about this, like I said earlier, and you guys let me know in the comments. I know I've got some takes on this that sometimes rub people the wrong way, or maybe you disagree, or maybe you outright agree with me, or maybe it's something you haven't heard before. And hopefully I'm putting it out there as something for you to think about, but let me know in the comments. But, think about Quincy and Justin. Anytime they've been at a party, anytime they've shared a drink with a young lady, anytime they've had relations with any women, all that stuff could now be like, hey, I remember that night. I had a drink. You were a little blah, 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 whatever. I don't know what was in that drink. I woke up. I didn't feel well, and my bra was over there. Anything could happen. I would venture to say, if they're going to say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree when it comes to Christian, the 26-year-old, it would seem that Quincy, the 33-year-old, and Justin, the 30-year-old, are probably somehow caught up in this some way as well. We don't know. We shall see. We shall find out. The never-ending soap opera of Diddy. Time to Talk podcast. I appreciate you being here. I look forward to the next one, the latest update on these, whatever's happening here with them. Yeah. I look forward to it. Subscribe if you've not subscribed. I really appreciate it. Make sure you hit that like button on the way out. That really helps the algorithm and all those things behind the scenes. And let me know again in the comments below, like, what is your take on this? What is your take on this latest suit? Do you understand what I'm saying about the idea that, some of the things in that suit, again, the boyfriend leaving, I got to wonder about certain things here. All right. Let me know what you feel. I want to hear from you guys. All right. Time to Talk podcast. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.